A business, an activity that you intend to carry on for profit and there is evidence to support that intention. An organization or enterprise that engages in commercial, industrial, or professional activity is called a business. The aim of a business is to carry out some kind of economic activity of production of goods or services. When it comes to defining the business, the single factor that matters is that the establishment wants to make money from that which it engages in. Business is an economic activity that involves the exchange, purchase, sale, or production of goods and services with a motive to earn profits and satisfy the needs of customers. Businesses can be both profit or non-profit organizations that function to gain profits or achieve a social cause respectively. Enterprises can be legal entities that operate for profit or non-profit organizations that support a social cause or have a humanitarian purpose. From small sole proprietorship to large international corporations, businesses come in all shapes and sizes. The term business refers to an organization or enterprising entity that engages in commercial, industrial, or professional activities. The purpose of a business is to facilitate some sort of economic production of goods or services. Businesses can be for-profit entities or non-profit organizations fulfilling a charitable mission or furthering a social cause. Businesses range in scale and scope from sole proprietorships to large, international corporations. Business also refers to the efforts and activities undertaken by individuals to produce and sell goods and services for profit. Business is the practice of making one's living or making money by producing or buying and selling products, such as goods and services. It is also any activity or enterprise entered into for profit. A business entity is not necessarily separate from the owner, and the creditors can hold the owner liable for debts the business has acquired except for limited liability company. The taxation system for businesses is different from that of the corporates. A business structure does not allow for corporate tax rates. The proprietor is personally taxed on all income from the business. A distinction is made in law and public offices between the term business and a company, such as a corporation or cooperative. Colloquially, the terms are used interchangeably. Corporations are distinct from sole proprietors and partnerships. Corporations are separate and unique legal entities from their shareholders, as such they provide limited liability for their owners and members. Corporations are subject to corporate tax rates. Corporations are also more complicated, expensive to set up, along with the mandatory reporting of quarterly or annual financial information to the national, or state, securities commissions or company registers, but offer more protection and benefits for the owners and shareholders. Individuals who are not working for a government agency, public sector, or for a mission-driven charity, non-profit sector, are almost always working in the private sector, meaning they are employed by a business, formal or informal, whose primary goal is to generate profit, through the creation and capture of economic value above cost. In almost all countries, most individuals are employed by businesses, based on the minority percentage of public sector employees, relative to the total workforce. Business, at its core, is one of the oldest and most persistent human systems for organizing exchange, value creation, and cooperation. Long before formal markets, corporations, or even currency systems existed, humans were already engaged in what we now recognize as business-like behavior. Early communities traded food, tools, labor, and knowledge based on need, trust, and reciprocity. Over time, this evolved into structured systems of exchange, and eventually into the complex global economies we see today. Yet despite all the technological and institutional changes, the essence of business remains surprisingly constant. It is about solving problems for others in a way that creates value, and then capturing part of that value in return. To understand business deeply, it is important to move beyond the simplistic view that it is merely about making money. Profit is certainly a critical outcome, but it is not the foundation. The foundation of business is value creation. A business exists when someone identifies a gap between what people need and what is currently available, and then organizes resources to bridge that gap. This can happen in countless ways, by producing goods, delivering services, innovating technologies, or even reshaping how people think about their own needs. In this sense, business is fundamentally creative. It takes raw materials, human effort, intellectual insight, and capital, and transforms them into something more useful than the sum of its parts. At the heart of every business is an exchange relationship. One side offers something of perceived value, while the other offers compensation, often in the form of money. But this exchange is not purely transactional in a narrow sense. It is deeply embedded in trust, expectation, and perception. A customer does not simply buy a product, they buy a promise that the product will perform in a certain way, meet a certain need, or enhance their life in a meaningful way. If that promise is consistently fulfilled, trust grows and the business relationship becomes stable. If it is broken, even once, the damage can be significant and long-lasting. This is why reputation is one of the most valuable assets in business, even though it is intangible and difficult to measure precisely. Businesses also operate within systems, not in isolation. Every enterprise is influenced by a network of external forces, including economic conditions, cultural norms, legal frameworks, technological shifts, and competitive dynamics. A business that thrives in one environment may fail in another, even if its internal model remains unchanged. Consumer expectations, for example, vary significantly across regions and societies. Regulatory environments shape what is possible, what is restricted, and what is encouraged. Technology can rapidly redefine entire industries. Understanding these external systems is essential, because no business has complete control over its environment. Internally, a business is a coordination mechanism. It brings together people with different skills, motivations, and perspectives, and aligns them toward a shared objective. This coordination is far from trivial. Individuals within a business have their own goals, incentives, and interpretations of success. Without structure, communication, and leadership, their efforts can become fragmented or even contradictory. This is why organizational design matters so much. The way decisions are made, how information flows, and how accountability is distributed all influence the effectiveness of a business. Some organizations rely on strict hierarchies, while others adopt more decentralized structures. Each approach has strengths and weaknesses depending on context. Leadership plays a particularly important role in shaping business outcomes. Leadership is not just about giving instructions or setting targets, it is about defining direction, shaping culture, and maintaining coherence in uncertainty. A strong leader helps others understand not only what needs to be done, but why it matters. This sense of purpose can be a powerful motivator, especially in environments where outcomes are uncertain or long-term. However, leadership is also constrained by reality. Even visionary leaders must operate within the limits of resources, markets, and human capability. One of the defining features of modern business is specialization. Tasks become divided and refined into highly specific functions. Design, production, marketing, logistics, finance, and strategy all become distinct domains. This increases efficiency and expertise but also creates interdependence. If one part of the system fails, the entire structure is affected. Business becomes a network of dependencies where coordination is as important as execution. Markets serve as the primary mechanism through which businesses interact. Prices emerge from the interaction of supply and demand, aggregating information about scarcity, preference, and value. However, markets are not perfect. They can be distorted by incomplete information, psychological behavior, speculation, and external interventions. Despite this, they remain one of the most effective systems for large-scale resource allocation because they translate decentralized knowledge into actionable signals. Technology has profoundly transformed business. Digital systems, automation, artificial intelligence, and global connectivity have removed many historical constraints. A business today can reach global customers instantly, operate across borders, and scale at unprecedented speed. At the same time, technology lowers barriers to entry in some areas while increasing competition in others. Entirely new business models have emerged, particularly platform-based ecosystems and subscription-driven services. These changes reflect not just new tools, but new ways of organizing value creation itself. Yet uncertainty remains constant. No matter how advanced systems become, businesses operate in environments where conditions can shift unexpectedly. Consumer preferences evolve, competitors innovate, and external shocks disrupt stability. Successful businesses are not those that eliminate uncertainty but those that learn to operate within it. They develop adaptability, resilience, and the ability to respond quickly to change. Time is one of the most important dimensions of business decision-making. Choices involve trade-offs between present and future outcomes. Investing in growth often requires sacrificing short-term profit. Prioritizing immediate returns may limit future capability. This tension between short-term execution and long-term vision is one of the central challenges of strategy. Human psychology also plays a deep role in business. Decisions are influenced by emotion, perception, bias, and social context. Customers do not behave purely rationally, they are influenced by identity and aspiration. Employees are motivated by meaning, culture, and growth as much as by compensation. Markets themselves can reflect collective psychology as much as objective fundamentals. As businesses grow, they face increasing complexity. Small organizations can rely on direct communication and intuitive decision-making, but large organizations require formal systems. Scaling introduces both opportunity and risk. Processes must be standardized, structures must be formalized, and leadership must become more distributed. Without these changes, growth becomes unsustainable. Competition is a constant force in business evolution. It drives innovation, efficiency, and adaptation. Businesses must decide not only what to pursue but also what to avoid. Strategic focus becomes essential. Rather than serving everyone, successful businesses often specialize in particular segments, building depth rather than breadth. Over time, they may expand, but initial focus is often key to establishing strength. Innovation is another defining force. It includes not only new technologies but also new processes, models, and experiences. Some innovations are incremental, while others are disruptive, reshaping entire industries. Disruption often begins in overlooked segments and gradually moves into mainstream markets. Established companies may struggle to respond because adapting requires changing their own successful systems. Business models are central to this dynamic. They define how value is created, delivered, and captured. Two companies may offer similar products but operate in fundamentally different ways. Platform models, for example, create ecosystems of interaction rather than direct production. Subscription models shift relationships from one-time transactions to ongoing engagement. Financial discipline is critical. Growth without financial stability leads to fragility. Cash flow, investment timing, and cost structure determine whether a business can survive long enough to realize its potential. Many businesses fail not because of weak ideas but because of financial mismanagement during scaling. Human capital is equally important. Employees are not interchangeable inputs but active contributors to value creation. Hiring, development, and retention shape organizational capability. Culture emerges from shared behavior and reinforces how people act under pressure. Strong culture creates alignment and resilience, weak culture leads to fragmentation. Businesses also face the challenge of maintaining relevance. Success at one stage can create inertia that makes adaptation difficult. What once worked becomes a constraint. Organizations must therefore remain willing to question assumptions and evolve continuously. Globalization adds another layer of complexity. Businesses operate across borders, navigating different legal systems, cultures, and economic conditions. This creates opportunity for scale but also increases coordination challenges. Ethics has become increasingly central. Businesses are expected to consider their impact on society and the environment. Responsibility is no longer separate from strategy, it is integrated into long-term sustainability. As business ecosystems evolve, they become more interconnected. Companies no longer operate as isolated units but as parts of larger networks. Value is created through interaction across supply chains, platforms, and global systems. Platforms have become especially influential. They grow through network effects and can rapidly dominate markets. However, they also raise concerns about concentration of power and dependency. Artificial intelligence and automation are reshaping decision-making. Tasks once performed by humans are increasingly assisted or replaced by machines. This increases efficiency but also changes the nature of work and competition. The advantage lies not just in adopting technology but in integrating it effectively into organizational systems. Consumer behavior is also shifting. Customers have more information and choice than ever before. Trust, experience, and identity increasingly influence purchasing decisions. Businesses must therefore focus on relationships and perception as much as functionality. Sustainability is becoming a core requirement rather than a secondary concern. Environmental and social impact are now integrated into business evaluation. Efficiency and responsibility are increasingly aligned. In such environments, resilience matters more than predictability. Businesses must absorb shocks, adapt quickly, and continue functioning under uncertainty. Learning systems become essential, allowing continuous improvement based on feedback. Competition and cooperation increasingly coexist. Businesses may compete in one area while collaborating in another, creating complex layered relationships. At a strategic level, long-term success depends on optionality, adaptability, and coherence. Optionality allows multiple future paths. Adaptability ensures responsiveness to change. Coherence ensures alignment between purpose, structure, and action. True advantage is no longer static but dynamic. It is not about having a single strength but about continuously generating new ones. Leadership becomes stewardship, shaping conditions for good decisions rather than controlling every outcome. Ultimately, business is not a fixed structure but an evolving system. It is a continuous process of coordination, adaptation, and value creation under uncertainty. It exists at the intersection of economics, technology, psychology, and society. And in the broadest sense, business reflects a fundamental human capability, the ability to organize collective effort to solve problems, create value, and adapt to an ever-changing world. Businesses are the backbone of an economy. They provide products and services that can be purchased by individuals and other companies. Businesses range in size from small to large and operate in many different industries. Business structures also vary, from sole proprietorships to major corporations that provide shareholder equity to their owners. When starting a business, do your research and develop a business plan. This can help you to raise the money you need to start your operation. Thank you for watching this video.